Produced by WTF Young America, your vote is your future. A WTF moment, the story of 2 elections and 2 generations. In December of 2010, the Washington Post published this chart comparing 2 elections, the presidential election of 2008 and the midterm elections of 2010. It shows what percentage of the voters came from different demographic groups in these 2 elections, including 18 to 29-year-olds, the millennials, and 30 to 44-year-olds, Generation X. Let's take a look at how these 2 groups behaved in these 2 elections. In 2008, inspired by a presidential candidate promising hope and change, voter turnout among young people was high. Millennials made up about 18% of the voters. Generation X also turned out in high numbers and made up nearly 30% of the electorate. Way to go, young voters! People under 45 made up nearly half of the voters in the 2008 election. 48%. Numbers like that cannot be ignored. Now to the 2010 election. Significantly less enthusiasm for voting among young people this time around. No dramatic presidential campaign, just state and national legislatures on the line. Millennials made up only 12% of the voters, and Generation X only about 24%. People younger than 45 made up only 36% of the electorate in 2010. Let's look at those numbers again. In 2008, people under 45 made up nearly half the voters in the country. In 2010, people under 45 made up barely over a third. What the fuck? But so what? Midterm elections don't matter as much as presidential elections, right? Look at one example of the impact of the 2010 election: voter ID laws. State legislatures elected in 2010 passed voter ID laws in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Virginia. And a funny thing about these laws is that they make it more difficult for young people to vote, along with several other prominent demographic groups: African Americans, Asians, Latinos. African Americans? Check. Hispanics? Check. Young voters? Check. Groups that turned out to vote at significantly higher rates in 2008 than 2010 were directly affected by legislation passed by people they didn't vote for. Fortunately, in 2012, young people turned out as they did in 2008. Will 2014 be a repeat of 2010? WTF Young America is working to prevent this. Join us.